told to speak from the heart, which is generally what I do. I am here because I do care. I don't have the statistical breakdown of how we win, but I would like to share a story with you. When Beto ran in 2018, I had the luxury of meeting him. Waited in long lines, just like everybody else, to get my photo taken. And I invited him to come to my house and meet my son, Victor. Victor was medically complex, disabled. He required 24/7 nurse care. When he first was put on hospice in 2019. When Beto spoke all across the state of 54 counties, we all know that, he mentioned my son and myself many times when he talked about health care. It was overwhelming for me. He heard me. He came to my home and we live streamed, and he met my son in his bedroom, and I talked to him for about 45 minutes or more about the importance of the Affordable Care Act, Medicaid, institutions, state institutions in the state, and how important it is to every family, regardless of party, to have the health care that our loved ones need. That stayed with me. Clearly, that stayed with him. I am not here to tell you what to do. I am here to listen and hear more. What more do you think I need to do as a candidate? What do you think other candidates need to do? I think that is one of the simpler answers, is that we as candidates, we as a party, we need to listen to all of you. I'm here to listen. I have been through adversity. I know what challenge is, financial challenge, I'm very familiar with. I have worked 3 jobs at one time. I have worked through going to school at college, working on a master's. It's hard. I understand that. I don't know all the answers for the Latino community, but I feel connected to you. My older sister lives in Mexico. She's been there, Loreto, not Laredo, Loreto. And she has a fishing business. She's been an expat for 30 years. I have a beautiful niece and nephew, and they love their country. I want to learn more. What we need as candidates are the basics. What we need is to reach voters. We need to continue hearing and showing up, as I am here today. But we need to reach voters directly and block walk. We need to knock on thousands of doors. And I am one person. And even my team is not big enough. I do not have the mounds of money that my opponent has. And while people tell me my area is not winnable, I say nothing is impossible. We learned that on Thursday. Nothing is impossible. I think I'm going to end on that. Thank you.
You know, the way that the meeting started was Alex was talking about the fact that what we're doing and what we do at the county level really isn't partisan. What we do at the county level and what I enjoyed so much was the public service. And I think we have areas, quite honestly, that we're responsible. Really, the county government is the implementer of state and federal laws. Yes, we make policy. Yes, we do things. And what I loved about it is with 3 votes, we can do a whole lot. Again, as evidenced on Thursday, when the 3 votes were, it ended up being 4 votes at least, that allowed you to maintain the early voting sites, and we need a lot more. But I want to tell you, I am not as interested in just saying what is it going to take to get a Democrat or what it's going to take to get a Republican, but what it's going to take to get somebody elected who is looking for more of how they can help the people than how they can help themselves. Yeah. I believe, and I believe that we are tired of the extremes, and I believe that the majority of the folks in Tarrant County believe that same way. But you talk about getting people out to vote. The time you need to get them out to vote is in the primary. And the time you need to give them good options to vote for people who are not on the extremes are in the primary. The last 2 primaries that we've had in Tarrant County, you had approximately 10% of the registered voters vote in the Republican primary, and around a little over 6% voted the Democratic primary. And when that few number are voting, then especially out of the 98 that you talked about, District 98, the extremes will get their way and they will put up for candidates for us to look at in November. We don't have a choice. We just don't have a choice. So what I would say to anybody who's running for any office, Republican, Democrat, Independent, whatever, is talk about what you're going to do to serve the people you're elected to serve. Talk to them about that, not about the fact that I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that Tarrant County stays as red as it is now. I was very much involved in that last election because we had the problems with about 30,000 ballots and we had to duplicate those ballots. And as I sat and listened to those votes being cast, and I was there from the beginning of that duplication process to the very end, I was amazed at how many people did not vote in the top race, but voted down ballot. And when they voted down ballot, for the most part, they were going to the podium. And what that told me was that many of the folks in Tarrant County really don't like the extremes, and they didn't vote for who they believed the extreme candidate was for president. And he's just as extreme today as he was back then, if not more so. I think we've got to get people out to vote. We've got to make sure that they're not discouraged. We've got to register them to vote. We've got a fairly high percentage, I believe, and you might probably know this better than me, but I think we have a fairly high percentage, but we can do a whole lot better. And unfortunately, our state attorney general is not helping me right now. They're doing everything, he's doing everything they can do to suppress and to scare people from getting involved. But I think if we really want to elect good people, we've got to get out, we've got to register to vote, we've got to vote, and we've got to look at the individual, what they're saying they want to do. The sheriff, you hit it the nail on the head. There's 3 responsibilities there. And I believe that you have got to focus. One of the deputies over there said something to me one day that really kind of resonated with me. The vast majority of the people who are in that jail have not been found guilty. They are innocent. And so to treat them as though they were automatically guilty is not right. I truly believe that with regards to jail, we need to really focus on the health of the individuals that are the inmates, not only the physical health, but also the mental health. I think we also need to focus on trying to educate them If they don't have a GED or if they don't have a high school education, we need to work on that. There's a new school that is starting up here, and TCC started it. And that's where we have an adult high school for kids that are, I believe, kids 18 to like 50. And so if we can start those folks in helping them if they're in the jail, then when they get out of the jail, they can enroll into something like that, and it can continue to help them get that education. Education is the key right now, and I don't care what office you're running for. We ought to be focusing on education, mental health, and the health of folks, and that's what the county commissioners, or as county elected officials, we ought to be doing.
Thanks, Alex. Maybe I kind of wish you'd move these tables separate a little bit. I'm probably going to catch heck for being on the same panel with Democratic candidates right now.
What about me?
Well, I will get to meet these candidates, and the editorial boards of the Star Telegram will make a decision in these races later. I'm here, at least speaking for myself, I'm interested in centrist, bipartisan government most of all. I'm interested in fair government that drops politics when they get to the door of the courthouse, city hall, the Capitol, moves the city forward, moves the county forward, moves the state forward. This has been my whole life. I was taught in government class in high school more than 50 years ago that the best government is where both parties keep an eye on each other. And so that's what I believe always has been the best government, when you have strong parties on both sides working to do what's best and not working to do what's political. So that's always what I believed in. What we have right now in Tarrant County is unbalanced government. We don't have bipartisan government. We don't have centrist or moderate government. We have one party that's dominating. The things that I tell the Democrats that I know, and I talk to so many Democrats all the time. First of all, you have to understand the territory. You have to learn Tarrant County and learn where this election is won. There are twice as many people living north of where we're sitting now as there are living south of where we're sitting. There are almost twice as many people north of Loop 20 as there are in Fort Worth and Arlington put together. So I talked to so many people in Fort Worth who have never been to Haslett, who don't understand where the voters are coming from in Keller and Southlake. Those are the cities right now that dominate Tarrant County: Keller, Southlake, Haslett. That's where the candidates are coming from. That's where the votes are coming from. That's where the victories are coming from right now. So that's where you have to learn to win. The Republican Party has bragged about how every time a new subdivision goes up, they are out there before the foundations are laid, distributing Republican literature in that precinct. Their precinct chairs are out there getting to know, shaking the person's hand when they come to move into their home. They're moving into the subdivision saying, here you are, nice to meet you. Here's the church in the neighborhood. I'm your Republican chair. This is where we vote. This is where we'll see you on election day. And the Republicans brag about how that they go to every new subdivision the minute it's put up, and they get to know the people. I know that quite a bit more work is being done right now in Northwest Tarrant County by the current Democratic candidate. I haven't seen a lot of Democratic effort in North Tarrant County and Northwest Tarrant County in a lot of past elections. So the first thing is get to know the territory. The second thing is, you can't only focus on getting people who don't vote to vote. If you're trying to talk to people, if you're spending all your time talking to people who don't vote, you're starting out behind. You need to talk to people who vote and tell them why it's better for the state, the county, the city to vote for interested, moderate, centrist government that builds the city. Vote for builders. Not for destroyers, not for dividers. Vote for builders and vote parties. Vote for people who want to build, whether it's lakes, airports, highways, business, community, jobs, success. Vote for people who want to build the community, not for people who want to divide the community. I will say the current county judge, who lives in South Lake right now, who moved here from Farmers Branch, I have covered him for 15 years, and his goal, as he spells it out, is to divide. In Farmers Branch, the reason he launched a campaign against illegal immigration in Farmers Branch was not because he had some deep-seated feeling about immigration or even about race. He felt like that the working class population in Farmers Branch and the changing of the community, mostly rent houses, was hurting property values, that it was hurting the city, that it was hurting the town. They couldn't rent their town square because the community was changing. And he said, we need to get all these poor immigrants out of here and get some rich North Dallas people back in here. So he decided, he spelled this out. He said, we want to make Farmers Branch uncomfortable for immigrants. And I see that now when I see the current Republican chairman who says on his social media feed on Twitter that he wants to make Tarrant County unwelcoming to Democrats. This is something else Democrats need to understand. They're not just out, the Republican Party is not out to defeat the Democratic Party. The Republican Party is out to chase the Democratic Party out of Tarrant County and make life so miserable that Democrats will leave. Again, the county judge talks about his admiration for Fort Worth Stockyards history and the Stockyards past. And he's not talking about the Vaquero statue. He's talking about the old white cowboy history that he wants Fort Worth to go back to and to get away from being a tri-ethnic city and get away from being the diverse success that Fort Worth is. Fort Worth in general is a bad word in the Republican Party. You saw what they did to Mayor Price. They castigated Mayor Price and slammed her just for being friends, for being involved in the gay pride parade, for being at the painting of the Black Lives Matter marker on Main Street. You saw what they did to Mayor Price just for being the leader of a diverse city. And so they slammed the Fort Worth Independent School District constantly. It's one of their favorite targets. They slammed the TCU constantly. Everything that's in Fort Worth is treated as bad, evil, possibly democratic, and that's because, once again, there are more voters in the north side of the county who can be taught to be scared of Fort Worth. That Fort Worth is a scary urban place. They want to stay in their comfortable South Lake Keller home, and that's more of the voters. So that's where most of the voters are right now. You have to defeat geography and get to know those people and understand the voters that are winning the elections, and you have to get people to vote for you who are not currently voting. You do that by proving that the moderate candidates, that the Democratic success. I think Colin Allred is running a good model for a Democratic campaign. He knows that in order to win, he has to get people who are voting for Donald Trump to come over and vote for him. He can't just win with all of Kamala Harris's votes. He has to get Trump people to cross over. So he's running a campaign down the middle that tells people, let's build, let's be successful, let's get along as Texans, and he's trying to build around ideas of Texas community. Gosh, I've probably talked too long. I'm sure I've got another piece of advice.
But that is a classic. I mean, that is politics 101. How do you get something turned around? And it's not like you sit here and you gripe about it. That's not the way you do it. We've been doing it for 25 years. What we do is go out and block walk. We call friends. We call Republican friends. We go to school board meetings and we support our Latino school board superintendent. That's what we do, but we don't do it. But if you want to change, we got to get off our couches. We got to get out in the middle of it. But if whoever gets on you for being here, send it my way. I'll take it. Because I'm not afraid, because we want the same thing. We want fairness. We want people to be civil to each other. That doesn't mean that we're going to agree all the time. Never going to be there. But it can be a way for us to talk about things. We can talk and disagree, but still try to work together to help the community. So the last question we have before we open it up to this group, and let's just go real quick, like 2 minutes each, is, we'll start with William, then you again, Judge, and then back to y'all, and then we'll close it off with Bud again. But what kind of person this can win in these heavily Republican precincts?
I think the thing we have to be mindful of is going back to demographic changes and understanding where Cameron County, from the Democratic side, is right now in that historical timeline. And the discussion we have today is probably not the discussion we'll have in 10 to 12 years from now. So to Alex's question, a Democratic candidate to win county-wide right now has to be a coalition builder. Because we are a party of coalitions, if that's the truth. We're a different group with different ideologies, honestly, that comes together to find some commonality that we can all work together. So can you do that? And I can share with you, to me it's a little bit of Groundhog Day. I'm a Californian originally. I learned politics, worked in California legislature for 20 years. And people forget, Pete Wilson was Donald Trump before Donald Trump. He ran on Build the Wall. He ran on taking away rights. He tried to restrict voters. And so there's already a blueprint out there, and I know Texans don't want to admit this, but because of all the population growth, Texas is where California was in the 80s. And when Clinton won California, it didn't go blue. And this fallacy of purple doesn't exist. It's either red or blue. That's the truth. And so when you look at California's history, you project it onto Texas, you see the pathway. So but right now where Democrats are, is can you be a coalition builder? Can you talk to the communities in the southern part of the county? And can you go up to precinct 3 and 4 and talk to those different communities and find the commonality that we all share and run campaigns that way to offer, as Judge said, good governance. That's where we are right now as Democrats, and that's what it's going to take to win countywide.
Again, as I said earlier, I think what many of the folks in Tarrant County are looking for is someone who's kind of middle of the road. They're interested in serving people. They're conservative. They don't want to think, okay, you're going to tax me out of everything. So they are concerned about that, but they also want to make sure that people are being treated fairly, that there is education opportunities, that we're not falling behind in our schools. They want to make sure that whoever the elected official is, they care about everybody and not just about their particular political party or whatever. It is red or blue, but at the same time, I think there's a whole lot of independent who are saying, I want to see the best person. And I want to see the person who's not, got flaming head and is way out to the extreme. And if you can give them that option, I think they'll vote for them. Maybe if you send out your material, I'm pretty bad about not reading material. But if you don't make it real obvious which party it is, they might read it just to try to figure it out.
I definitely agree with education. I think that it's always been a big part of our democracy. It's actually how I started getting, how I started getting into this particular role that I'm interviewing for. Healthcare advocacy is something I'm very familiar with. Hence, I talked to you about my experience with Beto. Infrastructure and services such as homelessness issues and affordable housing, yes, roads and bridges and things like that are certainly important. Public safety, having again increased affordable housing, and supporting our law enforcement officers, and voter access. Voter access, as I spoke about on Thursday at the court, is one of the most important things. Your voice needs to be heard, and that happens when you vote. One of the things that I said there, as I connected my son into that, because my son's nurse went and spoke, we were able to take her to cast her vote in 2020 by using curbside voting. What I was going to say is that it's not just about 10,000 voters that have access. It's about the one voter that does not have access. Everyone needs to have access. And I believe that I am a middle of the road individual. I respect Judge Whitley very much. I respect Bud Kennedy's words, and I'm taking them very seriously. I came from HD 98. I recently moved to North Richland Hills. HD 98 is where the public education, our schools were attacked. So I'm very familiar with all of that. I am here again to listen, but I wanted to also share one more thing. Excuse me for just a second. At the Democratic Convention, Eva Longoria said at the Spanish caucus, the Democrats designated farm workers as essential workers during the pandemic, passed the PACT Act for servicemen members, created 18 million jobs, support and help people with home ownership, reproductive rights. Project 2025 is ending birthright citizenship. She said these are the issues that appeal most to the Hispanic voter. Please keep that in mind. Thank you.
I was told that I have 1 minute and 57 seconds. So you all bear with me, for I do not know how to tell time. In the 9th grade, many decades ago, I took a course called civics. My civics teacher was Miss Mary Staff. Miss Mary Staff introduced me to this notion of public service. At the age of 17, I enlisted in the Louisiana Army National Guard, later got a commission in the United States Army Reserve, spent 30 plus years serving this nation, ended at an executive rank of assistant director, field operations, having law enforcement responsibility across 23 states, oh, and by the way, of every inch of the southern border. I'm a pastor. And all that together, in the 42 seconds I have left, says to me that everything we do is to bring people together. I am in this race, not because I'm an extremist. I'm in this race because of the 67 people, and I carry this with me everywhere I go. The 67 people included baby Zenora, who died because of extremist politics. The role of the sheriff is a leadership role. The role of the sheriff is a leadership role. It's to manage the citizens. It is to care for those who are there and to ensure that people in this community are cared for through public safety, rule of law, and to make sure we do not waste taxpayer dollars chasing after the conspiracy of voter fraud or anything to divide God's people. I'm Patrick Moses, and I want to serve as your sheriff, as one who unites us and not divide us.
Oh gosh, let's see. What was the question, Alex? I'm not on the ballot, Alex.
I know, what kind of message, what kind of person?
Oh, what kind of person could win? Senator Beverly Powell won. Commissioner Alyssa Simmons won. They were people who had ties in the community. We have city council members who do a great job of bringing together conservative and moderate parts of the city. You know, these are people who have roots in the community, who have community leadership, who've had community leadership roles, who know people, who prove that they really stand and speak for the community and not for partisanship and not for some, you know, the biggest problem we've got in state politics is that people tend to vote for some totally unheard of candidate who's dropped into a district and financed by the Wilkes and Dunn, the religious, you know, Republican donors. Yeah, and they win because there's somebody nobody ever heard of. But a lot of times people will turn down, they'll vote against the person with roots in a community. Well, it works at the state level because the districts are so big. But in a city, in a county, in a district, it's tough to beat somebody who's got good deep roots. So you find candidates who have local ties, who are tied into the schools, the churches, who when an opponent sits there and says, they are crazy, you know, people are not going to believe them because people in the community know them. So you get people with roots in the community who prove that they're for the businesses, the youth groups, the civic clubs. Schools obviously are, if you look at North Tarrant County, the way that church Republicans started dividing moderate Republicans was through schools. Church Republicans started fussing about taxes in Keller, they started fussing about curriculum in Southlake, and they rallied people to vote out their former school leaders and vote in a conservative wing. So schools is a good place, but you have to start that way ahead of the election and start recall elections and petitions and anti-tax petitions and start collecting names. You collect names of people that you can go back to in a campaign. So schools is a good place to start. But mainly you have to identify people and get people who have good roots in the community, who are trusted in the community, who run on a campaign that's for growth and success of the community, and that way they're invulnerable to any kind of attacks from the other party.
Now, we're going to open up for questions. We have this lady standing. You can be second.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. My name is Hilda Ramirez Duarte. I'm the LULAC National Chaplain, and it's a privilege to be here. But I want you to pay close attention to everybody who's sitting at the front table. None of them look like us. So my question is, what's in it for me as a Latina, as a female, and as an elderly? That's the first thing. Secondly, we are a nonprofit organization, so we're nonpartisan. We're looking for people that are going to represent us regardless of party. And third, what are you doing individually to reach out to the Latino community, especially the women, the household wives that have time on their hands but want to get involved because their future is invested in their children? And so that's are my questions and my remarks. Thank you.
Just as I said earlier in connecting with Beto, he connected with me, right? So I understand and I appreciate the comment and the questions. I learned from you. I am here because I want to learn more. I've said this before. My dear friend Perla Bojorquez, who's running for HD 93. Thank you very much. She's a dear friend of mine. We're very close, and I refer to everything she shares with me. I want to participate. Again, I see myself as representing all of Tarrant County, not just Precinct 3, where I am from. I understand that very, very closely, dearly. There are a lot of Latinos that come to HD 98, and they're there with their landscaping trucks, and they're there cleaning houses. And we need you. I understand that. I don't have the luxury of having a landscaper come to my house or someone to clean my home, but I'm just saying that I see you. I hope that helps.
Ditto to what Laura just said. I do not look like you, but I care about you, and I care about your cares. when I go back to this list I have in front of me, I do not look like Jennifer Lynn Espinozola. I do not look like Jose Manuel Rivera. But I care about each of these individuals because I think care is the fundamental requirement of any person who is serving the people of a community. It's not about what I can get out of it. My wife is in the back, and she'll tell you, this young man has enjoyed his retirement. I enjoy going to bed late at night. I enjoy getting up late in the morning. I enjoy going straight to First Missionary, teaching on Wednesdays and preaching on Sundays. But I must understand that I have been blessed by my Creator to be able to offer myself to serve the people of this community. Unfortunately, I must take a side on a partisan ballot to serve you as a nonpartisan sheriff who's committed to justice, committed to loving people, committed to representing my Creator, regardless if you love the God I love or not. And now, to your point of how do I reach you? How do I reach you? And how do I reach you? My opponent has plenty of money because there are special interests who want to maintain the status quo and can care less about the $40 million of taxpayer hard-earned money sent over to a county I never heard of and a town who in here know. And then when the accused detention officers who murdered, allegedly, a young man whose mother I met this past week, and I spent time with Miss Jacqueline Johnson at the death of her Marine son, Anthony Johnson. Your tax dollars has to pay the prosecutor to defend the detention officers, and guess what? Your tax dollars must pay for the criminal defense. Not only on the criminal, but also in the civil trial. So it's about money. I don't have the money to reach you.
Next question.
But I can try my best.
Next question.
Morning. My name is Rosa Quintero, and I think you've asked questions of what you want to know, what we feel, what makes us motivated. As a Mexican female and here from the north side, I can tell you that we believe of our families, but we respect, we will do anything we can for our elders and for our children. So let me just let you know what happened just this past week. I work with the Diamond Hill Community Center, with the Boys and Girls Club. I work with youth, 12 to 18. They come to me Wednesday telling me, Ms. Rosa, they're gonna go shoot up our school tomorrow. Do you know how scared those kids were? And to let them know, don't worry, go to school. Everybody here that lives in this area, we know that Northside, Kirkpatrick, Meacham, okay, have issues about being gun violence happening here. We know everywhere, there's everything occurring. But I want to know where you stand, because I'm going to tell you, I vote for the person who cares about my kids and cares for my mom before money or anything that you're talking about, okay? Because that's why I'm here. I want to know what you think of this gun violence, because that definitely is something being totally what do you call the amendment, Second Amendment for Republicans is like, oh my goodness, you can do anything but that, you have to keep. I'm sorry, my kids can't go to school because we don't have something going on about gun violence. Okay, that's my question.
I don't know if it's to me directly, but I would like to answer that or respond. I am also a parent of, so I have 2 children, one who passed, and my son now, who is 12, who is in middle school. He also has to go through those horrific drills that scared the hell out of our kids. It's frightening, it's horrible. It's now the norm. That is hard for me to grasp, thinking about myself as a 12-year-old. I hear that and I feel that very directly. I am also distinguished by the support of gun sense. Yes, people have the right to bear arms. Do they have the right to carry certain guns? That is not for me to determine. The role of commissioner is to manage the budget from your taxpayer dollars. But I am always there supporting safety in our schools. I 1000% understand that fear. And I am so sorry that these children and any parent like myself have to carry that, especially when you're faced with it even more directly. I don't know if that's a response that you're looking for, but that is definitely coming from my heart. I carry everything that people are sharing here, and I'm taking note. That's really the most that I can tell you is, and that's why I've spoken out at the Commissioner's Court, and I have supported the prisoners who have died, their families, not I've supported that they died, but that they were treated fairly. Mental health is an important issue. We talk about it all the time as after something happens at a church or a school with gun violence. Hopes and prayers are not saving us. We need real legislation. That's why I support gun sense, moms demand action. And that's why I support candidates who are the same. Thank you.
Terry Mays, the next question.
Well, I just had to be here this morning to hear such a distinguished panel. When I saw the list, I was so impressed that all of you are here today. I would like to mention for you that I knew Wayburn before he had the title sheriff, back when he had the title police chief. And there's a reason why they say don't DWB in DWG. And if you don't know what that means, you can ask me later. The other thing I wanted to mention was that I had to unseat an incumbent who felt totally comfortable in going to Austin and voting against us. And he was voting for civic. And if you don't know that, I'll explain that to y'all later. And why did he feel comfortable voting against us? Because we weren't voting. So I had to convince people that we needed to turn out and vote. And so his strategy for winning was that we didn't vote. And my strategy was very radical that we did vote. I saw that again on the UTA campus Tuesday when we had the press conference about the college campuses being omitted from the list. It seemed like it was purposeful not to suppress the young people's vote because they think that young people are more likely to vote one way than another. So any party that has as their goal for winning suppression of the vote, just to me is not a good campaign model. You should try to win based on earning the vote, not on suppressing the vote. And so that leads me to this question for the panel, whoever would like to answer, especially going to like maybe Mr. Whitley and Mr. Kennedy's comments. So if, going back to the vote on Thursday, 4-1 vote, where we had Ficus and Ramirez, 2 Republicans, county commissioners, who voted for the list that included the college campuses, and then being heavily criticized by, I believe it's Bo French, who's the Republican Party chair, criticized by the county judge that they're not being good Republicans, that they're voting with Democrats. So if you've got Republican county elected officials who are being criticized for voting bipartisan or voting for what they feel like is in the best interest, or for listening, listening to the community who turned out to talk to them about what they cared about, then how do we get more moderates in?
Vote in the primary.
Right.
But the primaries where we get those extremes, because in the primaries they have to go.
That's right. The problem is if you don't elect people in the primaries, yeah, never been accused. If you don't find moderate candidates to run and to put up to run in the primaries, then your extremes are the ones that are going to put up people, and that's what you're going to be left with. And so you just got to look at getting people, whoever it was that said involved. I think Bud said this. Get people who are involved in your communities, who your communities know, and get them to take the next step and to run and to put themselves out there. And I understand it's difficult now. I mean, people will be attacked for running, but that's what we've got to do if we're going to get people of a moderate nature, and again, people who are not on the extremes.
But Betsy Price was a great example of that, and look what happened with her.
Yes.
I mean, I don't disagree with that. I think we were all shocked. Maybe we shouldn't have been. It's been over 40 years since a judge has been elected from Fort Worth, Commissioner's Court judge. The last one was Mike Humphrey.
That goes back to what I said.
Vanderbilt was from Washington.
Yeah, Vanderbilt. That goes back to what I said about 2 million people, twice as many people live north as live in Fort Worth and Arlington. I mean, somebody who has good community, circuit in Fort Worth. Yes, having strong community force field around you helps protect you from criticism. That's a person you can get elected. But it's tough for that person to run countywide when their power base is just South Fort Worth. I mean, you have to have the strength in Haslett and Keller and South Lake and places like that. It goes back to knowing where the voters are.
When I was doing my legislative updates in the district, I said that I was concerned about my Republican colleagues, which people thought was an odd thing for me to say. And they said, what do you care whether or not they get reelected? I said, we've had redistricting, the Democrats are not going to win. And do you think someone more moderate is going to be running against them? No. When they get primaried, it's never by a more moderate person. It's always by a person further to the right. Because no one ever says, vote for me because I'm more moderate. They always say, well, I'm the true conservative, that person's a rhino. And so I said, I was concerned because my Republican colleagues that I had, I felt were going to be better than anybody that's going to replace them. So that's my concern about how we get moderates, especially in the Republican Party.
I just want to add one thing to that. In respect to my friends on the Republican side, honestly, that's not a Democratic problem. I think at some point the Republicans need to have an honest conversation about the extremities within their party. And I think it's a little bit disingenuous because I've had this conversation, especially in this cycle, with the Republican presidential primary. And there were certain parts of the Republican Party that were asking Democrats to come vote in the Republican primary to vote for Nikki Haley. And I honestly think if I was talking to Mr. French or moderate Republicans, I would say it's very disingenuous. They ask the communities that you will never give any power to come save your party from the extremism that you create. And so the question I would phrase to Republicans is, when is enough for the moderates if they start voting Democrat? Because if Betsy Price had run as a Democrat, she'd probably be county judge right now. And as a Democrat, I feel compelled to raise that issue because I don't think it's fair to tell the rest of the communities, please come save us, when those same communities were never offered a seat at the table. Look how long it took to get the other council seat in Fort Worth for the Latino community. And the only reason that happened is Jared Williams took out a 16-year Republican incumbent that gave Councilmember Flores the votes he needed to get that council seat drawn. Had that not happened, if Jared Williams not beat Jordan Jones, we would not have the makeup of the city council we have right now. So I just feel it's important to say that because we just can't keep saying, please come save us. There has to be movement from the other side back to the middle.
For a long time, the Republicans went over to the Democratic primary. That may have been a few years ago, but I can tell you that that is what happened. Those were your self-talk Democrats.
Young lady has the next question to you, over there.
Thank you for the young lady. Yes, my name is Mara Vaughn, and I'm a professor at UNT Dallas. And I also direct one of the most comprehensive, if not the most comprehensive, preparation course for citizens here in the United States, which we, in person, we actually educate 100 plus people and their families. And right now we're going national, so we have educated actually thousands already. So my question to you is going to be very simple. We are under a DEI band, diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is affecting all of us. The stats is, and if you're watching the news, that our black and brown people have been going to university within a year. That declined 7, 10, 20% admissions within universities. That's universities. Now at the corporate level, that number seems to be even higher. We can cook and clean. That's how people outside think about us. But we're also professors. We also deserve the right for equal opportunities. My question to you is, I believe that we lead by example and that representation matters. It is not happening in Texas. We have counties with over 90% of Latinos, and we have some countries, 1% of representation. If you lead by example, or if you have led by examples, how many Latinos have you mentored? Or are you willing to mentor? Because this really is important to us here, especially in this county. So my question to you is, what have you done to mentor them to become you in your position? Or what will you intend to do and to appoint Latinos to actually be a part of what you're going to do in the future?
And who do you have?
Any of you, and all of you, I say representation of a woman there. So anybody, would you tell me what will you do to include us? Thank you.
DEI is very important. I saw it under attack when I was living in Colleyville when it started.
Why don't we answer the question? What the question was, what have they done to mentor Latinas?
What have you done, and what will you do to continue that path of Latinos getting to positions of leadership? What have you done, and what will you do to assure that Latinos will have their position, will continue rising in politics within positions of leadership?
I don't know if I'm going to give you the best educated answer, okay? But access in understanding how to vote, we all know is important. On my website, I have, this is a simple thing, on my website, I have a little flag at the top, and you click on it, and you can see my website in any language. I recognize that we need to do more by offering more access in multiple languages, not only Spanish, not only English, of course, right? That's one small thing. Have I mentored anyone? No, I haven't. But I will be honest with you, I am a first-time candidate. I started down this journey because of my very close recognition in Grapevine Colleyville School District that they started attacking DEI years ago. And I have spoken about DEI before it became a national issue. So diversity, equity, inclusion. My son was disabled. He was othered. I understand through his lens. Everything that I do is through my son's lens of being othered. I will never support othering people. Everyone should be included. Everyone should have the right and the ability to apply for jobs that they are interested in, that they receive a higher degree for. I will always support that.
Thank you, Professor, for that excellent question. Our representative mentioned earlier where my opponent hails from, a little small town. In contrast, let me tell you, I started my career early on as a presidential management intern in the federal government. And one of my first assignments was to serve as an equal employment opportunity officer. I understand that language. But more importantly to that, I spent years and years and years and years moving up the ranks. First, General Service Administration, Federal Protective Service, and later the Department of Homeland Security. In every position I've held, branch chief, deputy regional director, assistant director of field operations, I had opportunity within that organization, those agencies, to actually mentor women, to mentor people of color, black, brown, all identities. I've had direct opportunities to mentor them. I've had direct opportunity not only to mentor, but to make sure that when I left my position, that someone was qualified, who looked like you, looked like me, and looked like all, can move into those positions. Let me tell you about DEI. That is nothing but extremist politics to constantly demean other people. And the reason it is in Tarrant County, the reason it is in the state of Texas, the reason it became an issue at the national level, as I was preparing to retire from the federal government, following the George Floyd killing, one of the things Donald Trump did was start indoctrinating or attempting to indoctrinate within the federal agencies and attack to scrub, erase anything that deals with diversity, equity, and inclusion. So as you look at what's going on right now, I read one of the papers just this week, as a result of all of this extremist rhetoric, now black and brown students are no longer being admitted into higher education. Why? One of the panelists mentioned earlier, I think the judge mentioned earlier, and my grandmother, who couldn't read and write, born 1892, taught me early in life, that education is the key. Education is the access. Education is the way out of any oppression, any poverty. And you don't understand that when you get home, go on Amazon and order this book called The Pedagogy of the Oppressed, Pablo Vieira. And he'll teach you that it's important for people who have been marginalized, people who have been oppressed, get the best education you can so that you can think your way, you can reflect your way, and you can act your way out of anything. So what I do is make sure that people look like you, not only serve on Citizen Review Board, but also part of the administration. Why? Because all of us are vulnerable at some point in life. So that's what it's about.
Hi, I'm going to come stand up here real quick because somebody asked me to. My name is Josh Lucas. I was born and raised here in Fort Worth, Texas. City's farmers campaign manager. It's a countywide race as well. And this panel, I believe, is about how's a Democrat going to win a countywide race. And we've talked a lot about voting in primaries. I think we've talked about council races. My question is, Judge Quinn Whitley, as being the only person here who's won a countywide race, who are you going to vote for sheriff in November?
Oh my God.
Because that's brass tacks.
I'm going to go into the voting booth and vote for who I think is the best person for that position. And I don't, I think made it pretty clear here today that I don't vote just Republican or just Democrat. In all likelihood, I'm going to vote for Patrick. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm going to still watch what goes on between between now and November from that perspective. And I mean, if I were somebody who just goes in and pulls the thing, pulls the ballot, which you can't do it, I wouldn't have been here. I really believe, to the previous question, if you looked at my office from the day I went in as county commissioner to the day I retired as county judge, I had Hispanic folks in key positions. My precinct administrator, Jane Sanford, was a Hispanic. Margie Piroca was a Hispanic. Rachel Ariano. You were put on the civil service. I tried as best I could, anytime I made an appointment, to look at the makeup of that board, and whenever possible, I would try to find Hispanic folks to be on that. I'll be very honest, I sat down with Jane and with Margie early on and said, why don't we have more Hispanic representation? And when it comes right down to it, you have three priorities in most of the Hispanic countries. It's work, it's family, it's church. And that usually keeps you busy enough that you don't have time to do a lot of the volunteering. So I'll see who I'm going to end up voting for. That'll be, but I've made it pretty clear that I'm going to be voting for a lot of Democratic candidates.
Okay, that wraps up this part. Now we're going to have announcements as we get prepared to do that. Let me just kind of wrap it up. Thank the panel. I think you heard a lot about what it takes, right? But one thing that I hear over and over again is we can't win a countywide race. We Democrats, if you keep the same playbook. And young lady, if the DEI, if you run on that in her precinct, she won't win. Well, both of you. If you run on DEI, listen to me. I'm talking to you. We're here talking about what it takes to win a countywide or in her precinct, heavily Republican. If she ran on DEI, she wouldn't get 12% of the vote. So we got to think bigger. We got to think how we can win. All of us believe in fairness, but for you to think that you got to stand up for DEI and then complain because the governor, the lieutenant governor, the attorney general, the county judge, we got 2 Republican county commissioners Republican, and we complain that they're Republican and they're against DEI. It's on us. It's on us. And it's on, listen to the professor. You know, I've always met PhDs who talk, but they don't listen. We're not going to win with that philosophy. We're not going to win countywide for a long time. Until William, how long? 10, 12 years. We got to do it tomorrow. So everybody, let's gut up, be honest, look in the mirror, and say we haven't been doing very well. And let's get it on. All right? But thank you. You guys did a wonderful job. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chuck. Let's get it on. Thank you. Judge, as always, remember what I said about him when I started? The epitome of fairness. He stood up to Abbott a long time ago. He stood up to it. I mean, but I'm not.
You stood up to me a lot of times. Yeah. What about that? A nice relationship? I think it's been better since I retired.
But Bud knows politics. All right, announcements. Let's come up. Alex. Let's stand right here.